All right, let's dive into one of the biggest public health mysteries of our time. Why have autism rates absolutely skyrocketed in just a few decades? This is a huge story. It's about science, it's about parent advocacy, and honestly, it's about a complete shift in how we understand the human brain.
So let's start with a number that really frames this whole conversation. According to the CDC, right now, 1 in every 31-year-olds in the U.S. is identified with autism spectrum disorder. Just think about that. That's not some far-off statistic. We're talking about a child in almost every couple of classrooms, a kid down the street, maybe even someone in your own family.
And to really get your head around the scale here, let's just jump back in time. In the 1970s, autism was considered incredibly rare, affecting maybe 3 kids out of every 10,000. And now, 1 in 31. So how on earth do you explain a jump that massive? Well, that is the central puzzle we're going to try to solve together today.
Okay, so first up, let's trace the journey of this diagnosis. How did we get here? How did autism go from being something on the absolute fringes of medicine to a huge part of our national conversation?
This timeline really lays it all out. You can see, for years, the numbers were basically flat. Then, in the late 80s, the definition of autism started to get a little broader, and you see that line just start to tick up. But the real explosion? That happens after the year 2000. The rate doubles, and then it pretty much doubles again. This wasn't some slow creep. It was a total statistical rocket launch.
So, what is really going on behind these numbers? It's a puzzle, for sure, and the answer is a whole lot more complicated than you might think.
And that brings us right to the heart of the debate. Are we looking at a true epidemic of a new condition, or are we just getting way better at seeing something that was there all along? The answer, as it turns out, is a pretty fascinating mix of things.
Yeah, there's no single smoking gun here. What researchers really point to is kind of a perfect storm of factors. Public awareness has just exploded, doctors are now screening for it super early, and, this is a big one, the actual definition of what autism is has changed. And that brings us to this really crucial idea.
Let's break this down, because it's super important. A huge piece of this puzzle is something called diagnostic substitution. So think of it this way. For decades, a lot of kids who showed traits we now call autism were instead diagnosed with something else entirely, usually an intellectual disability. As our understanding got better, the labels changed. And this chart shows that substitution in action. Just look at the data from special education services. As the green bar, that's autism diagnoses, shoots straight up, look at what happens to the orange bar, intellectual disability diagnoses. It goes down in almost a perfect mirror image. It's really powerful evidence that we weren't just finding new cases, we were reclassifying old ones.
So here's the big takeaway from this part. While we can't completely rule out a true increase in cases, a massive part of this so-called autism explosion is really an information explosion. We're finally getting a much clearer picture of a reality that was just misunderstood, mislabeled, or flat out missed for generations.
But this isn't just a story about numbers and charts. Behind every single one of these statistics is a family, and they're navigating a journey that is complex, emotional, and often really expensive.
The financial toll alone, it can be staggering. Studies estimate the lifetime cost of support can range anywhere from $1.4 to $2.4 million. And that's not just doctor's bills. We're talking specialized education, years of therapy, lost wages for parents, and sometimes lifelong care. But the pressure, it's not just financial. This quote from a mother named Wendy Radcliffe just captures the emotional weight perfectly. She says it's like a race against time, this constant feeling that there's a critical window for your child's development and this intense, burning urgency to get them the right help before that window closes.
So what is this help they're racing to find? Well, for many families, the answer is a therapy called Applied Behavior Analysis, or ABA. It's really considered the gold standard. Basically, ABA uses proven principles of behavior to help build crucial life skills, things like communication and social interaction, while also helping to reduce challenging behaviors. And the results? They can be absolutely life-changing. This isn't some new or fringe therapy. It's backed by 5 decades of solid research. We're talking about intensive programs that have been shown to lead to huge, lasting gains in IQ, in language, and just everyday skills. For so many, it's the key that unlocks a more independent future. But here's the catch. Intensive, effective therapy is also incredibly expensive. And that brings us to the next chapter of this story. The nationwide battle to get insurance companies to actually cover it.
For years and years, families were just trapped. Insurance companies would deny coverage for ABA all the time, using these excuses like, oh, it's educational or it's experimental, even though there was a mountain of evidence proving it worked. It left parents with this impossible choice. Either drain your life savings, go deep into debt, or just watch your child go without the care they desperately need. So, frustrated parents and advocates, they started fighting back, state by state. A huge turning point came in California with this landmark bill that ended up becoming a model for the whole country. And it was so brilliant because it was so thorough. It didn't just say, you have to cover it. It closed all the common loopholes, getting rid of those arbitrary dollar limits and age caps that insurers have been using to get out of pain. And that victory in California, it just created this incredible domino effect. What started as this grassroots movement of determined parents and advocates grew into a national force. Today, because of all those years of relentless effort, nearly every single state has a law on the books mandating insurance coverage for autism treatment. It is a remarkable public health success story, truly built from the ground up.
Okay, but even with all this amazing progress, the story is not over, not by a long shot. There are still some major questions that linger as we look to the future.
So just to be super clear, most scientists agree that better diagnosis is the #1 reason for the increase in numbers. But that doesn't mean the case is closed. Researchers are still digging in, trying to figure out if there has been any true increase at all, and what environmental factors, if any, might be playing a role.
And it's so important to stress that this is all active research. Nothing here is conclusive. But scientists are looking into potential links to things like prenatal exposure to heavy metals or certain pesticides, and even things like high levels of air pollution, or if a mother had certain infections during pregnancy. The goal here is really just to leave no stone unturned in understanding this incredibly complex condition. And all of this leads to one final, really crucial question. For decades, the whole conversation has been about the numbers, counting cases, diagnosing them, explaining the rise. But as our understanding evolves, maybe the most important question is no longer why are the numbers so high, but instead, how do we build a world that supports and empowers every single one of these individuals to truly thrive? Thanks for joining us.